So tell us about yourself. Who's Antoine?
My name is Antoine. I'm an author, but I never really tried to be an author necessarily. It's just that I didn't find the book that I wanted to read, so I just wrote the book that I wanted to read, and then I fell into it because I started writing when I was very young, maybe when I was like 7, but I didn't do it professionally, even though there's been times in my life, like my mom would like take me to Office Depot, laminate my books, and be like, hey, look, it's all typed out and stuff. Because back in the 90s, if you had your stuff typed out, it felt like it was legit. Then I got to high school. I did a program called Inner City Filmmakers. I got a scholarship there for like the first place like screenwriting award, and I still was like, nah, I'm not gonna write. Went to university, multimedia, Cal State Northridge, not too far away from here. And my teachers were like, hey, you should be writing. And I'm like, no, I want to be like a YouTube content creator. So I just kept like saying no to it for many, many years. And then almost the second that I started writing, my young adult series got optioned for a motion picture. And I think the universe was like saying, hey, you should probably be writing, kid. So I continued doing it.
How do they go through the process?
So for a young writer who is starting out writing, I usually suggest first to read. It's really, really important because a lot of writers will hear like the best advice they give is that reading is very important, and knowing what the market is, in particular if you want to be a commercial genre author. It's not just about like, oh, I have this vision and I want it to be this, and that. You don't really make sales if you do that. You have to actually play to whatever the market is at that time. So yeah, reading is a lot. Market research, very important. And writing, not necessarily every day, but always thinking about your writing and doing a little bit of it, whether you're outlining or banging out your first draft. Is very important to do.
What is your daily routine? Do you treat it like a job?
Yes, yeah, you have to, or else it doesn't get done. So if you don't treat it like a job, then you will not earn the revenue from it. But if you do, then you actually do earn back the revenue. So what I usually do is half of my day is spent marketing, the other half is with writing or with some other form of publishing and whatnot. Because I'm also an audiobook engineer and producer, so I do that a lot on the side as well. So whatever I'm doing, it's always going to be related to writing on the day. Has to be.
Great. Okay, so you said one of your books has been optioned, or is the whole series?
Yeah, no, it's this series here. This is my adult series. This is not optioned. This is a separate anthology. But this main series here, T.J. Young and the Orishas, very similar to Percy Jackson, Harry Potter. But instead of it being the Greek gods, it's the West African Orishas, which most people are not familiar with. So a lot of times when people read my story, they're like, oh, I didn't know that this mythology even existed, or that West Africa had this whole pantheon. So yeah, no, it's out there.
And what's the process of getting one of your titles or your books optioned?
I couldn't tell you that because my initial plan was that I was going to finish my series first and then reach out to representation, whether that was like an agent or a manager. But when my second book in the series came out, people started emailing me.
Oh, wow.
First, it was a Nigerian company, and I didn't know what the heck, so I hired an entertainment lawyer and was like, hey, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, hey, this is what your rate should be. And so I gave that to them, and they're like, that's too much. And then someone else came, and I was like, hey, I have my rate now. This is my rate. And they're like, too much. And then the third person came, and I was like, this is my rate. He's like, I'll take it. And I was like, okay, cool. So for the last 3 years, it's been option, and they keep renewing the option. So famously, George R. R. Martin, author of A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, people know him from.
Yes.
He was able to pay off all his debts through just options because he wrote a lot of novellas and short stories and standalone novels before he had the big break with
what is
Game
the
of Thrones.
period of an option?
It depends on what you're on, but it's between 6 months usually or 18 months.
So it's important to have the option time-based.
Yes.
You don't give people an indefinite
No,
option.
there's never, you should never, ever give an indefinite timeline to an option. There should always be a finite time that you're sticking
And then
to.
have you had the options expire? What happens?
Yeah. So every time, it just renewed 2 months ago, I think, 2 months ago, something like that.
So you can just earn an income off the options.
Exactly. And that is what George R. R. Martin famously did for years off his short stories and novellas.
And did you have to go and seek representation before this happened?
Well, with my lawyer, yes. I had to. Once people started emailing me, and I was like, I don't know what the heck any of these terms mean.
So don't just wing it.
Yeah, no, do not wing it. Hire someone. Yeah.
Are you a local here in Santa Cruz?
Northridge.
Northridge, fantastic.
Yeah, so it's close enough, right?
Yeah,
Does Matt
just
know
over the
them?
hill.
Yes.
But not over the hill.
Yes.
Because you're aiming at youngsters.
Yeah, I write a variety. I write adult romance, mostly rom-coms, and then I also write young adult fiction. But those are in the genres of fantasy and horror. And then the thing with my books, all of the characters are half Filipino, like myself.
Tell the audience who is Vanessa. You said you started young. How young did you start writing?
Probably like when I was a very avid reader. Like I was that kid that during the summer when they had summer reading, I read the entire summer reading list plus some. So when I was little, I would like make my own books and staple them together, and so even into high school, like I started writing, but nothing published.
And so, to what extent is language and the specific language of your experience and the identity, how do you bring that into your books? Is it all
These are all available.
vanilla English, or you?
These are all.
You said you're looking for Filipino
For
American.
me, I mean, my most popular series
that mix.
is my young adult series.
Tell me about language.
Yeah, so I don't actually speak Tagalog. I do use a little bit of the language in the text, but mostly it does like revolve around food. I think in some cultures, like food is a very like wonderful way to kind of like not only mix cultures but also to kind of bond over. So there's always like a talk of food somewhere in this, and there's usually like a very like sage old woman somewhere in there, like a a Lola, that kind of has some influence over the main characters, and
she has her recipes that are ancient recipes.
Maybe not ancient recipes, but like sometimes it's like when people have problems, you feed them.
Okay.
I don't know if that culturally, if that's something that you can relate to.
Absolutely. So tell us about that a central character like that, the wise sage. You've got one of those characters in your book.
So in It Waits in the Dark is it's kind of pitched as Stranger Things, but with Filipino mythology. So all of the monsters in there are actually Filipino monsters, and I really think our monsters are the scariest. Like they're horrifying. So there is an old grandmother in there that she kind of is like the person that warns the young adult about what's coming and not to like invite it in.
Right.
And so there are a couple of scenes where she cooks a meal for her, and they kind of bond and talk over it, and where she kind of gives her a little bit of advice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How has the reception been for your writing? Tell us about the traction you've had so far.
Fairly well. This was my first one. I didn't kind of like. I think through the process of writing, I've kind of been a little more connected with my own culture as well, and so more in these books, I think that it's a little more representative. And this is the newest one that came out late last year, and I've got a lot of reception on it. I think a lot of people are very interested in a type of mythology that you don't see too much. It's not as mainstream.
And you've got a social media presence as well?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm over there, and then I also do a newsletter through Substack.
If you were advising youngsters, we're launching a bookathon,
where they bring the
what are your sage words to
my own sage words? I would probably just say like I tell this also to clients that I edit for that to just always keep writing. Like it doesn't matter if it's the story you're trying to tell or it's just keep working that muscle. Read in the genre that you want to write in, so that you can see what's current and what's trending, and then take some time to I'm really about supporting story structure. So I think it's a good idea to map out and outline your stories instead of going by the seat of your pants. I know some people love to do that.
Yes. And are you doing this as a full-time? Is this your full-time occupation, writing?
Kind of part-time because I'm a full-time mom. So.
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a job.
Yes.
And that's a more than full-time job.
Yes.
So when do you get time to do the writing?
I squeeze it in wherever I can, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes in the evening. I do what I call mobile office, where like I'll be waiting to pick up my kids in car line and I will have my laptop and I will write in the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. And so you're going to be at the May 10th event at the college.
Yes.
And lovely. Looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Yes, no problem. Thank you.
Hello, welcome. Here's my audience. For each of my books, I pick a person. It could be a real person in my life or an invented person, and I write for them. For these, boy, that's a different question. I would say blue-collar folk.
Okay.
Sort of ordinary folk with ordinary problems, but set in extraordinary settings. But that's not to say that the problems they have are impossible. They're ordinary problems, but just sort of expressed in extraordinary ways.
The science fiction genre is a great way of playing out the issues that are going on in our present. So
Yes.
tell us about that as a vehicle for...
Well, that's true. I mean, you can get away with things in science fiction and fantasy that you can't in other genres because you can disguise things. You can put a wizard's cap on someone, but you can make someone a robot or whatever. And it is a way of discussing ordinary problems. What's the saying? The only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself. Bell Runner's a series, so I've got 2 here, first and second, and I'm working on the third right now. This one is, I guess the elevator pitch to this would be, it's a Don Quixote story. What if he got what he wanted? No, I'm a full-time teacher. I teach in this area. I'm at West Ranch High School. I do lots of other things. I coach football. I umpire baseball games. I would say the first 2 things are read and write. There's one thing you can be sure of writers, they write. You do have to get yourself out there as much as we're all doing right now, and you're helping us do. So the business side of it is very different from the creative side of it. You almost have to be a 2-headed individual, I think, to do that well.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you all the success.
Thank you.
We'll see you
Thanks very much.
on May 10th. Thanks
You
very
betcha.
much.
All right.
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Well, I am a children's book author and illustrator. I do some animation too. I was a teacher for a very long time, and then I went on to work for Lakeshore Learning Materials as a product developer. And then when my kids decided they were going off to high school, I decided I needed to do what I really loved the most. And so I really focused my attention on children's books. So I have 4 children's books right now. One is going to be published with History of Books in 2026 called The Meanies. And I'm constantly writing and illustrating. And I've done other books, illustrated other books for other authors, 11 other authors. So, or do I want to focus on a lifelong passion? And I really have been devoted to art and illustration in every capacity for my entire life. So I thought children's books was the way to integrate my knowledge for kids and keep my passion for art alive. Actually, I'm going to be at the book festival as one of the keynote speakers for storytelling through illustration. It's myself and my friend Harley and another illustrator from our group for the Santa Clarita Valley Children's Book Authors and Illustrators group. Yeah.
So, talk us through the process of creating a children's book.
Well, so I really think that it's so important to have a chat with the author if you're illustrating for someone else, or really as an author, to get focused on what your audience really needs instead of what you want to project, right? Because oftentimes kids will learn a lesson if it's produced in a way that it doesn't seem like a lesson, right? So know your audience and then produce a book that's very entertaining both in illustration and in words. And if you can show it through the illustrations, show, don't tell. Keep the word count low and really let the kids immerse themselves in the pictures. Lots of little Easter eggs and things to see in there. So I think if you're talking to the teacher in me, it would be a different answer. But since you're talking to me as an illustrator too, I'll say that Chris Van Allsburg, do you remember any of his books? Jumanji and Polar Express.
Oh, my word,
and he illustrated all of those books with such details and Easter eggs and such beautiful work on each and every page as a teacher and as an illustrator and even as a kid, you know, at heart. Those books are just amazing. You can look back at them and see something different every single time. So I aspire to that form of artwork in a book. I don't know if I've reached that yet, but
Hey, Ali, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
So, is this your first time at Barnes & Noble? Clearly not.
Well, it's actually, yeah, my second time.
Oh, wow.
In September, I read, when this book came out, The House on Mary Hill, I did a story time. Oh, yes, I shoot. This book came out last year, and at the end of September, I read right there on the stage. It was a lifelong dream of mine. I've been coming here since I was a kid, and I loved this kids section specifically.
Tell us about that experience when you were a kid and you'd come here to Barnes & Noble.
Oh boy, I could spend hours. I got lost here. From being greeted by Frog and Toad on his little ladder, and Frog up there, to just reading on, there used to be a big picnic bench kind of thing here, and sitting on the stage and like daydreaming about being up there myself one day. And one time I went to a story time here around Christmas, and I was convinced the guy reading was Santa Claus. I really thought he was Santa Claus. I went to school, I went to CalArts for animation, and I realized what I really love about animating is storytelling. And I was constantly writing little things in my notebook while studying animation, and all of my films were very story-driven. And then I started, I'm a freelance artist, and I started offering illustrations for other people's children's books, and loved that so much. I was like, I could do that too for my own stories. I've got so many stories. So I wrote Little Monster Needs a Nap in 2022 for my nephews, and self-published it, and then the next book, and I have more on the way. I took one class in creative writing just to get some of the basics and work on tense changes and stuff like that, and then I've joined a community writing group at the Open Book in Canyon Country, and we meet every week, and that has really helped hone my skills, just having that peer review and being around other writers and reading their work, and just read a lot. That's very inspiring to me.
Is it a full-time job for you now?
It ebbs and flows. I'm pretty much full-time working freelance, but in my spare time, I'm working on my own personal projects on the side.
I see. Okay, and then you know, you're of a generation that has now all the tools of high technology at your disposal, and especially as an animator, you probably have used all sorts of software.
Yeah.
Have you been tempted to use AI for your authoring, for your writing?
It feels like it would just do the fun part that I love.
Right.
So why not I do it?
Well, why don't you do it yourself?
Yeah.
Exactly.
For I write short stories and novels too, and for those I'm very inspired by Ray Bradbury and Douglas Adams.
Oh wow.
But for my children's books, I don't know if it's any one author, but I really loved, growing up I gravitated towards the books that addressed anxiety and things that I've struggled with myself all my life. And
Tell us about your thoughts about the banning of books, but but also about, you mentioned Ray Bradbury. How did that book affect you when you read it?
Ooh, it affected me the way all his books did. Just the prose is so powerful and the subject matter is so prevalent. I feel like books shouldn't be banned unless there's something illegal about the way they wrote it, but everything, you should have an analytical mindset. You shouldn't just immediately full-on agree with what you're reading. You should
tackle. To what extent are you bringing that sort of critical thinking or lesson to be analysed into your children's writing?
Yeah, I try not to be very, like, hit people over the head with it, like very obvious, but in both of my books there is an underlying current of some processing emotions. So like this one, it's very silly. It's Little Monster Needs a Nap, which was inspired by my nephews who needed to take their naps. But it also talks about emotion regulation and just taking care of yourself, and you know, when you have a big emotion, just sleep on it maybe, and then come back with a clearer head. And then The House on Mary Hill is this girl is kind of imagining what spooky things go on in a spooky looking house in her neighborhood, but it also kind of tackles growth and change and grief. And yeah, so I like to sneak in a little emotional nugget in anything I write.
And the illustrations are yours?
Yes. Yeah.
Now I notice on both books there's a house in the
That's
cover.
true.
Was that intentional?
No, and also the houses took the longest to draw. It was really hard to draw the house.
That is amazing. You know, it makes me feel like, okay, it's addressed to children, but you know, you're not far from home.
Yes,
And just looking at it, if that is that an important theme for you?
Yes, definitely. Always looking for some sort of peace and comfort and safety.
So you're in the Santa Clarita Valley. Is this home for you?
Yes, it is. I grew up in New Holland Canyon Country, and I now live in Castaic.
Okay. Well, shout out for your high school.
I was homeschooled.
You were homeschooled.
Yes,
Excellent.
but I would have gone to Canyon. My friends all went to Canyon.
Okay, and then straight into Cal Arts.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, look, I'm looking forward to seeing you on May 10th.
You.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you.
Sybil, good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Okay. So is this your first time at Barnes & Noble?
It is my first time at Barnes & Noble as an author.
As an author, but you've been
Yes.
here as a customer.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Are you local to the Santa Clarita?
I'm actually from the Pasadena, Glendale area, but I'm a member of the Santa Clarita Valley Children's Book Authors and Illustrators, so I'm here very frequently for our monthly meetings, and we do a lot of school visits and literacy nights here. Sybil has at least 7 personalities. So I was born and raised in Germany, and actually my first wish of what I wanted to become as a grown-up was an author. As soon as I could write, I would write. And then in 2019, I took a fundraising trip for lemurs to Madagascar, because animals and conservation have always been a passion of mine.
You need to hold the book up and show everyone.
And then on this trip, I met this lemur, which was an extraordinary experience. And that very night, we wrote it down. I wrote it down in my travel journal. And I knew I had to make something out of it. I felt like I'm the vessel, the story was given to me, and I have to do something with it. And I eventually decided that it was going to become a children's book, that would be the perfect thing. And it just so happened that during COVID, one of my best friend's daughter graduated from Art Center. And so that was our project. Then I wrote the story and rewrote it probably 100 times. And then we worked on the illustrations like remotely together. So she's the illustrator, but we literally worked on each page together. So while I really try to get everything scientifically correct in my books, my main focus is the love. I want somebody to love Brigitte because that's what's going to make them want to protect her.
It's called Madagascar. Exactly.
Yes, and they got it wrong because they're talking about they have King Julian, but lemurs are female-dominated societies, and they would never have a king. It would have to be Queen Julia. So that's what I tell everybody.
That's a big faux pas.
Yep. But first of all, Madagascar is the only place where there are wild lemurs. You know, that happened when the island broke off from the continent of Africa millions of years ago, and so they are a spot with a very peculiar biodiversity that you don't find anywhere else. Unfortunately, it's also a very poor island, and loss of habitat is their primary threat because the humans are so poor that they keep doing slash and burn or cut forests down for firewood, for whatever. Sometimes the lemurs get eaten, sometimes they get sold into the pet trade. Because forests are good if there's a heat wave, if there's a dry spell, you still have shade and some water that's being generated by the trees or plants. When there is no forest, it's all dry and hot. And the same with storms, the magnitude, it just gets amplified with fewer forests. Yes.
Look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. It was
a
a pleasure meeting you.
Fantastic. Carol, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Is this your first time at Barnes & Noble?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
And you're local to Santa Clarita?
I am very local. I taught school out here. I'm a retired teacher.
Go on, shout out for your school.
Sulphur Springs School District in Santa Clarita.
Fantastic. And so you've been here as a customer. We've all grown up enjoying Barnes & Noble since it was created. Tell us about your experience here.
Well, I really love the children's section. In fact, they have a place where we can read to kids, and that place over there happens to have the characters in my book, Aloysius. It has the owl, it has the rabbit, it has the squirrel. What a perfect venue to read children's books.
I wonder if you'd just hold this one up.
Hold this one up. This is Aloysius' Unusual Birthday. And none of the characters in here follow through on bringing the birthday gift to the lion. The rabbit's going to bring carrots to the party, the squirrel's going to bring nuts, and nobody follows through. And there is Aloysius. You get to hold him.
This is amazing, because I recall this glove puppet when I was telling stories to the kids a long time ago. So this is quite amazing.
But you know what? You can make him sad. You know
make
why
him
he's
sad.
sad?
That's right.
Because nobody follows through on what they were going to bring to the party until the wise owl, and he's a very educated owl, and I'm going to show you him really quick. There he is. Yeah.
Wow.
And the owl teaches them there is still hope if you follow through by doing what you said you do, being responsible for your part and completing your job with a happy heart. So I'm teaching kids to be responsible. Can you tell I'm a teacher?
I think I can.
So all of my books teach good character, like respect, responsibility, the work ethic, gratitude, cooperation. So I want to make a difference to the next generation. But during COVID, the first part of COVID, I wrote this book where I took every state in the United States. It took me a whole year to do this one. But a lot of the kids in my classroom didn't know where they lived. I said, name some of the states. They said Mexico, Canada. I had a kid say Chile, and I had one say Antarctica. So I knew I needed to be teaching this. And you know, we have these little characters called the minions. Their kids are familiar with that, with arms and legs. So I put arms and legs on every single one of my states. And I rhyme places to go visit. So it all rhymes because I was influenced by Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss' first book, he sent out to a publisher, and they didn't accept it. And then he sent it again and again. 26 times. On the 27th time they published. So he's my hero, Dr. Seuss. I put him in Dr. Seuss. And so I rhyme because, especially for autistic kids, they can pick up the rhyme and the flow of it. And especially in Santa Clarita, we do a lot of movie making here. California, Yosemite National Park, and redwoods ever so tall. San Francisco, Golden Gate, Hollywood, movie making, what a windfall. Right, and when grandparents are taking kids on trips, they'll learn some of the landmarks. And then, of course, we have to have a little game to go with it. So I put a game in here. Not all the states and their capitals and the abbreviation, and then I wrote a U.S. rap. But what state is named for a U.S. president? What states only have 4 letters in them? And then the answers are upside down in small font.
Don't tell anyone. Okay, I won't tell anyone.
All right. Emma is getting teased and bullying about the way that she looks and her glasses, and they're making fun of her. And so she thinks if I change my image, the clothes and my looks, and I become like an American Idol star and sing, and I win, then people will like me. And that's kind of what she was feeling. And then she figures out all that glimmer and glamour has kind of faded away, so she starts writing about her feelings. And then she says, I'm amazing inside and out, and she has wonderful self-esteem. Thank you. I'll be there. I was there last year.
Michael, pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
How are you doing?
Very
Is this
good.
your first time at Barnes & Noble?
It is, yes.
It is, as a customer as well as
Not as a customer, no, I'm quite familiar as a customer. This particular Barnes & Noble is quite remarkable. I live in Thousand Oaks, California, and we have one right down the street. It's multiple layers, but this is quite organized and has a lot of unknowns. I would agree. Today's population is overworked, overstressed. They don't have a whole lot of time to have a book in their hands. They have turned a lot towards audible books, but those don't make any money for the author. My name is Michael A. Delitala. My alter ego is the revisionist. It's acts of fiction that are family dynamics, coming of age, and discovering your true authentic self. I've also been in the pharmaceutical industry for 30 years, so as a quality guy, so I write books also on quality. Since I'm an expert on the full of the quality management system, I have a book coming out about each element of the quality management system to total nearly 20 or 30.
Wow, okay, so your quality book, Solve Problems Like a Pro, okay, so who's the audience for that?
The audience, actually, since quality is a universal concept applicable to all industries and all tasks within those industries, it's applicable to everybody.
So tell us about the revisionist. Who is that character?
You know, when you're writing about family dynamics and you're pulling from things that might actually be true, there may be a point in time where you write so much that you can no longer reconcile with said family. So it must be under the heading of something I have revised. Therefore, the revisionist was born.
Fantastic. So, you know, the term revisionist for me is someone that goes and rewrites history.
Yes.
And reinvents and maybe retells a story from a different perspective. Can you dive deeper into that concept?
I do take creative license to spin the story, any of the stories, in a way that will be the most impactful to the reader. I even refer to them throughout the journey. Dear reader. Great question. I'm still trying to figure out who the audience is. I would say Volume 1, the audience is for stepmothers and biological mothers, as well as young kids who are in a situation where they might have two sets of parents to deal with. I would say Volume 2, The Torture of Love. This is a love story. It's also a Shakespearean tragedy, so I would say that's for young adults up into adulthood. Short stories and poetry for Tales of Turmoil and The Torture of Love Part 2. 100% poetry. Those are for adults only.
So tell us, how has the image of the step-parent evolved since the Grimm's fairy tales and since Dickens to the modern era?
Yeah, you know, I think for a step-parent, the parent who is not the step-parent, there just needs to be a very candid conversation about what the role will actually be within the family dynamic. In my case, let's just say I had a stepmother who I was forced to call mother. I was never given the option, in other words, right? So that person was not actually my mother. I already had two mothers. Therefore, you know, the conversation between the adults needs to be, what is my role? What do you expect of me in this role? Am I just a guardian and a leader, or am I actually going to be a parent? Nothing too remarkable there. It's actually already here, and I just literally sit down and write it. That's it. This took me, the Revisionist Volume 1 took me a decade to write. When I wrote it, though, I felt empty in a very good way. And in the next week, I wrote this one. It only took a business week. Tales of Turmoil took 2 days. And then, if I may, please, sorry, thank you. And then Part 2, I actually realized in writing Volume 2 that this was already written. I had handwritten poems for a period of a decade, so all I had to do was type it up. So that took a day.
So, well, we look forward to seeing you on May 10th at college for the Santa Clarita Valley Book Festival, and wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Bill, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks very
How
much.
are you?
Is this your first time at Barnes & Noble?
I have done several events at Barnes. This is my first time at this store, though.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
But you've been here as a customer.
Oh, yeah, for years and years.
Yes. Are you local to Santa Clarita?
I am not. I'm down outside of LA. And I'm sort of a genre hopper. So I've written westerns, I've written horror, I've written children's books. So I'm all over the place. But anybody who enjoys a good read, find something for anything. Yeah.
Fantastic. So genre hopper, and I see there's a kid's book here called The Two Cookie Kid.
The Two Cookie is my latest, yeah.
And then your cowboy book, The Saragossa.
Yeah.
So give us a flavor of what's going on. Both have got cowboy themes in them.
They do. So my father, when I was growing up, my father read only one type of book, and he read Westerns. He read Westerns his entire life, branched out a little towards the end, but Westerns all the way through, so I grew up with that. When his health started to fail, I wanted him to be able to read something that I had written, so that's where the first Western came from, because it's what I knew he liked. And I like the themes of most Westerns. Most Westerns have a clear line drawn between right and wrong, good and bad, right? There's always a good guy and a bad guy, and usually the line is not very blurred. And I think in this day and age, people respond to that pretty well. It always surprises me how many people reach for the Western, and I think it's because of that. I think it's because that clear line is there, and people want the simplicity of a story like that. So when it came time to try my hand at a children's book, it sort of made sense for me to go into that world where there is a clear line for good and bad, and kids need that as well. And the children's book, which came out last year, has quickly become my best-selling book. Obviously, I've seen a ton of films that were filmed up here. I mean, back in the 40s and 50s, almost every one of them was filmed up here. Vasquez Rock's down the road. So this has always been a rich environment for it. When my first book came out, my biggest supporter had a bookstore up here in Santa Clarita, and she was also involved with the Gene Autry Museum. And she invited me up for an event, and we did a great event up here, and she was fantastic. And so I sort of had a soft introduction to the Santa Clarita Valley and the people up here who like to read. And I've come back almost every year since. So it's been years I've been coming up and doing events and signings. And the Santa Clarita Book Festival promises to be an amazing event. I wasn't able to attend last year. This year I'm happy to say I'll be here, and we'll be talking to everybody. The business of being an author is very difficult to break into with those kind of numbers. That's lightning striking, right? There are a lot of really great writers out there who you've never heard of, and it's a shame. And it's the beauty of things like this that allow you to get to meet people like that and find people who actually can write a good story. There's multifaceted versions of a writer's life, and in Southern California, the film industry is always a big draw, and everybody hopes to get their book turned into a movie, and it's a little easier, I think, in Southern California than it is in other parts of the world. My first book has been optioned, yes. It's been optioned several times throughout the years, and the option it's a great way to make a little money at it, and at the same time you're hopeful the movie gets made, but in the end you've made a little bit of money on the option to begin with. So
tell us about the process of options. If you're talking to young kids, okay, so they've written something and they get approached and say, hey, we want to get an option.
The best thing you can do is to get an agent and someone who is well versed in dealing with Hollywood and studios and whatnot, and to have realistic expectations. I think that everybody wants to be working with Steven Spielberg, but there are a lot of smaller production companies out there that are looking for good content, and nobody starts at the top, right? So the thing is, if you're focused and motivated and learn your craft, it could happen, but it's still just a lightning strike that gets you. I would encourage any younger generation, because us old guys can't do it forever, any of the younger generation who are interested in writing to continue and to get better and to learn. And the only way to do that is to read and to write and to read and to write and to read and to write. There's no other way to do it. There's no shortcuts. Well, if you do it just for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, right? If you feel like you have a compelling story to tell, or you've got things that you want people to know, or you want just to get the word out, That's the reason to do it. The money will come if it'll come. I tell people my father, who I wrote the first book for, was the only real cowboy that I ever knew, but he wasn't actually a cowboy. He just had that mentality, right? He would do what was right no matter what.
Do you hearken back to that simplicity, or do you think there's...
I'm under no delusion that the world is that simplistic, right? And I'm not even under the delusion that the world would be better with that simplicity, but I do think that the world can learn a few things about how to get along. And I think that we all want to root for the guy who's trying to do the right thing.
Fantastic. Well, Bill, I'm looking forward to seeing you on May 10th at the college.
I will be there.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
Linda, so pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Linda, are you a reluctant author?
No, I've been writing since I was, I don't know, 8 years old. Nothing I would read out loud to anybody. But
so sort of very private writing for yourself mainly.
I was, but I used to love to read, so I would go to the bookstores and go to the library and find books I liked. And then when it got to the point where I couldn't find any that I really liked, I thought, I'm going to have to write it myself. And so characters were coming into my head at the time. And then I wrote a short story, I think it was in 8th grade, and it won some awards. And then I went to college, and I did a fiction class, and the teacher said, I really can't teach you anything. So I thought, well, that's a sign I should probably be writing more. And then I tried to get published and almost got published so many times, and then something would always fall through. And then I found the right publisher, and they published the book. I think it's a matter of synchronicity. Certain things happen, and then you have something ready. But consequently, it took another 2 years in editing, because the story that I handed in is not the story that's final in the book. It really needed a good editor, and they had one. So I still don't have an agent. And I asked them, do I need to get an agent? And they said, why? You already got a publisher. You don't need an agent. So I still don't have an agent, because I know that they're always out of stock at the publisher. It has a bookstore, North Figueroa Bookshop in LA. It sells out. There's some here. They only have one left at Barnes & Noble, so it's carried at Barnes & Noble.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you on May 10th at the Santa Clarita Book Festival. Thank you very much.
Yes, I will be there.
Keep well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Leslie, really lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Is this your first time at Barnes & Noble? Really not.
No, I actually did a signing with the first book in this series. Oh, and I'm here every weekend. Yeah. Oh yes, I have more books, in my house that I can read in a lifetime. But I'm working on them. I'm working my way through.
So you're keeping up the tradition of reading. Do you feel like reading something is life?
No, actually I don't. I feel like it's in the ascension, especially with things like Book Talk. And on Instagram and the social media, there is a whole lot of, a whole community of people who are sharing books and talking about books and loving books and boosting books. And I feel that that's more fertile territory than it has been in a long time. It's one way social media is really wonderful, and it expands that community. Yes, I'm on all the main social media things, Instagram, Book Talk, TikTok, Facebook. Yeah, it's fun. It's a way to reach people that, writing is such a solitary endeavor. And it's a way to feel that you're a bigger part of the literary world, not only with other writers, but like I said, reaching out to the readers. And it's feedback. When people say, oh, I love this, or I fell in love with this character, or now I want to go to Ireland, my books take place in Ireland. I've even had people from Ireland say, I'm Irish, and oh my gosh, your books are so, they really showed me looking in the mirror of my home. I never hear about books taking place right here where I live. It's my job. I work for 8 hours a day or more if I'm on a roll. I'm a retired teacher, so I was doing this. I began to write professionally when I was still teaching, which was a real challenge, because I would have a day of teaching, then come home, and then have my writing day, which would be 4 or 5 hours every night. I taught in the Saugus district in elementary school.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, the last place I was at was Emblem Academy, teaching 5th grade. Yes,
And so you've been an influence on your students, and do you find yourself in the checkout of your supermarket, and then the kid that you taught?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I see people that have like kids who have grown up, because I taught for 25 years out here. And these kids you had when they were little, they come up as adults, and it's like, I know that face, I know you, and it's exciting. Oh, it was amazing. Where we first lived, there was miles and miles and miles behind us of undeveloped land. It was a really humbling experience, because it really prioritized your life as to what was important and what wasn't. And I think it really was an impetus for me to really devote more time to my passion, not saying I'm going to put it off. It was around that time I really began my journey, my writer's journey, and saying, okay, I come from the world of theater. I was a theater professor at UCLA for years in design. And but when I went to school there, I also did a lot of playwriting and had some plays performed. And so I come from that world. And then I realized, what? I can really expand writing a book, because I can go deeper and further, and, you're not just limited to the dialogue. And after the earthquake, it's when I said, that's really, I'm going to go for it.
You personify the Bruins alum.
There you go.
Look at the color scheme.
Always. I'm very dedicated.
You've got the blonde hair and the blue shirt.
I am. I'm the poster girl for UCLA alum. Yeah.
Exactly. You're a walking Bruin. Did you know that that's what you and Ruth have in common? She's also a UCLA alum.
I did not know that. Wow.
So,
what did she major in?
She was majoring in English. Yeah.
Oh, so, yep. Inside everyone's head, including mine, lives the dream of traveling to impossible places. Near the Artist's Gate of Central Park, I pass a lamppost my lifelong friend Colleen swears is the entrance to Narnia, her personal fantasy terminus. Neverland tops my list. So far, no red-haired boy in a green felt hat has knocked on my window with an invitation to fly across the Atlantic. Even if Pan bothers to show one look at me and he'll zoom away. Adjunct college professors nearing 30 have already hit their expiration date for eternal youth. No matter, it's best to avoid the risk of running out of fairy dust off the course of Newfoundland.
Fantastic. Well, look, Leslie, thank you so much. We look
Thank
forward
you
to seeing
for
you
visiting.
Okay. Thank you very much. See you at the college May 10th.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Sarah, great to see you again.
Great to see you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming out.
Who's Sarah Burns?
Well, Sarah Burns is an historian who loves to talk history almost too much, and that's why I decided I better write so that I can save my voice. But I've been teaching history, U.S. history, women's history, and African American history for 30 years, so it's been a while. I've been teaching at Bakersfield College, Cal State Bakersfield, College of the Canyons, Antelope Valley College, and National University.
Fantastic. And so we're going to see you on May 10th at the College of the Canyons at the Santa Clarita Book Festival.
Yes, I'll be featuring at least two. I did about the 3 S's in publishing. Scams, scams, scams.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yes.
So for new aspiring authors, can you tell us what to be aware of?
Yes, lookalikes. There are a lot of Amazon lookalikes. And when I first, when this book came out in June of 2021, I did a lot of self-promotion, and I kept running across Amazon publishing entities, and it took me a while to figure out that the one who purported to be the publishing division of Amazon.com was not. They just used the name because Amazon was a river long before it was ever a selling company, so a lot of people used that. I began with an agency in Hollywood called the Anthony Mora Agency, and they are an outstanding, upstanding organization. Currently, I'm advertising locally in the town on which this book is based, which is Bakersfield. And so I'm advertising on Cuz Country Western Station. It is absolute history that's been fictionalized for the protection of the guilty and the innocent. It begins just before California became a state. with the founding of the state after the Mexican War, 1846 to 48, then the gold fields. So my character that begins the Cooksville name, Frank Cook, fights in the Mexican War, meets a Choctaw maiden in Santa Fe, New Mexico, hears about the goldfields, travels to the goldfields, meets a Chinese man there. In due time, he has a very lucrative spot in the original goldfields, makes a lot of money, banks it, and realizes then that his wife and their child, will be branded a half-breed. So it becomes important to him in this early history to create an environment where he can protect diverse peoples, because she's Choctaw. He's just an ordinary Eurocentric man. But in the goldfields, he's met the Chinese people, he's met Native Americans, he has met Hispanics and Spaniards, and they make an entourage and make their way down to the southern, in my book, San Andreas Valley rather than the San Joaquin Valley.
Wow.
And
Okay.
found a town where he can establish himself as the founder and make the rules, because early California was very vigilante.
Would you like to read us a section of it? And you know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to move the microphone over to you so that we can get a good quality of it. I'm going to just click this on you. Just do that. There we go.
Okay, very good. All right, I'd like to read a section that deals with the 20th century town of Las Vegas, just beginning to blossom as a casino town and a mob town. The Kansas City mob at this time had already planted its roots in Bakersfield among the ranching and farming communities. This is true. And my key protagonist, Lenny, the criminal law investigator, at the time is a G-man. He shows up with his gun to protect some of the farmers and ranchers as they get audited by the government, the IRS. So later in the late 1840s, he goes to Las Vegas also to work for the government in investigating the skimming practices of the mob. So this is a section of that where our very savvy investigator is carefully hobnobbing with the mob and getting to know them. The temperature had dropped to a cool 95 degrees by the time Lenny ended his evening walk and stepped into the Hotel Last Frontier. There were only about 3 casinos at the time, but they were building the Flamingo. He wandered into the casino looking cool as a cucumber as he attempted to blend into the gambling population before him. He had followed 2 tough-looking characters from the coffee shop straight to this hotel and casino, careful to keep his distance. When he entered the hotel, he saw no evidence of these men, but he made the decision to hang around for a while to find the most active gamblers and how they were handled or not. Wandering casually, Lenny searched for the most active space, attempting to feel the mood and observe the action. Appearing calm and casual, he wandered from craps table to blackjack to roulette and back, taking his stiff puff from his Camel cigarette to fit in with the crowd. Lenny quickly exhaled, trying to avoid choking on the smoke. He was much too persnickety about his health and cleanliness to be a smoker, but he realized most gamblers were addicted to almost any upper and downer they could latch onto. So he worked at keeping up the ruse. Stopping at the roulette wheel, he observed a distinctive gentleman with a large stack of poker chips. Standing behind him and egging him on was the most stunning woman Lenny had ever laid eyes on. She was a tall and statuesque redhead, draped in expensive jewelry and a dress which left little to the imagination. Her white bejeweled gown began with a scoop neck in front, revealing full and fetching breasts. The open back of the gown revealed a lean and tan back as it dipped into a V below the waist and just above what must be heaven on earth. He drank in this magnificent image for as long as he could without appearing lecherous. How he would love to get lost in that body. The croupier called for all bets, and the man in front of the redhead placed half of his stack of chips on number 13. The other 4 gamblers placed their bets, all appearing to stay as far away from number 13 as possible. When all bets were placed, the croupier spun the wheel, which seemed to spin for an unreasonable amount of time. When it stopped, the dealer shouted, "And lucky number 13 wins." The happy winner took his gains and remained in his seat. He turned to the redhead and had her blow on his chips before placing his next bet, which was also a winner. As Lenny observed the game, over the next 10 minutes he began to detect a routine. Each time the lucky man with the red head placed only a few chips on the wheel, he lost the bet. Whenever he stacked half or more of his stash, the wheel seemed to stop, as if by magic, on his chosen number. Liddy watched the tall beauty, the croupier, and the lucky gambler as this process played out. In due time, the gorgeous woman walked away and entered a door which seemed to be private, for employees only. Within 5 minutes, a tall and robust man, one of the two tough-looking gents Lenny had followed from the diner, walked out of that same room and toward the roulette table, accompanied by a visored gentleman. As the tough guy observed this process continue, he stepped behind the croupier at a distance. Strangely, the gambler's winning streak seemed to wane. The robust man stepped forward and whispered something in the croupier's ear, and he stepped back. "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rourke is now off duty, and Mr. Lantini will be taking over this table. Enjoy your evening and let the games continue," he stated good-naturedly as he led Mr. Rourke away toward the private room. As the robust man walked away from the table, he locked eyes with the lucky gambler, as if to say, "The jig's up, buddy."
Well, Sarah, we look forward to seeing you on May 10th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rose, very pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Is this your first time at Barnes & Noble?
In here, yes.
It is, but you've been a customer here for
Yes.
a while.
Yes.
Is Santa Clarita local for you?
I live right by CalArts, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How long have you been in SCV?
I pretty much grew up here. I moved away for 4 years for school and then came back. So.
Shout out for your high school?
Valencia.
Valencia High, okay. And were you a sports goer?
No.
No, you weren't one of that jock crowd.
No, I was a writer. I
And
wasn't. Yeah.
So what did you think about growing up and you got the clear distinction between the jock crowd, the cheerleaders, and literary and intellectual students? Was there a sharp division there?
I would say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The more literary kids, you didn't really see them very much, so but you saw everyone else. So I would say yeah.
And were you that girl that's in the Disney cartoon with her head in the books walking
Belle.
around? You were Belle. Okay.
Yeah. She's not my favorite princess, but
She's
I was
not
Belle.
right. You are fantastic. And so what do you write about?
I write women's fiction and romance. This book is more primarily women's fiction, but my upcoming ones are more on the romance, open door romance. So it's just what I'm interested in. I think it's
Open door romance. What's that about?
that means they're steamy.
I see.
Yeah.
Just not 3 times. Just the title of that makes me imagine all sorts of things.
Well,
What is it about? Is it set in Santa Clarita?
no, it's actually set in the PNW, the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
And then kind of transfers to San Diego and then back. So it's like a second chance love story, but it focuses more on the main character who you kind of follow throughout childhood to young adult, kind of coming of age, finding herself. She experiences a very rough childhood and grows out of it.
And so what do you know about Seattle and the Pacific Northwest?
Well, my dad currently lives in it's called Sequim, Washington.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is more that way up there, not
Right.
Seattle. I mean,
Not Seattle.
a little bit of Seattle, but
Right.
I've been there lots of times. So that's kind of what inspired it. Well, I've been writing since I was really young, like poems and short stories, random songs, just for my ears only. And then during COVID, I was like, I'm just gonna write the book. I already have it in my head. Let me write it. So here I am. Don't be discouraged. Lots of things are discouraging, but don't listen to all the noise. It's worth it. I self-publish.
Okay.
But I have a really great community, especially like through social media. You know, that's marketing now. It's all through social. You know, once you're done with your book, you have to get it, find editors. I do 3 rounds of editing. I'll do developmental, line editing, and then a proofread. And then you have to find someone to design the cover, and then there's the formatting. Then you actually have to publish it. I use Ingram Spark or Amazon, so that's where I do it. This one was actually a hybrid. I own it, but they did a lot of the back work. And then this one, this is my newest book. I did that all by myself.
And the illustration, they do.
I hired somebody for that.
You hired someone. Okay.
I can't do that.
The page layout and the editing, did you do that all yourself?
I did the formatting. I hired editors.
Okay. And you have a social media integration as well. Talk to us about that. How do you do that?
I think social media is the most important part for selling books. Especially romance, there's like a whole community with that. So as long as you're consistent and meeting people and talking to people, I mean, the last year I've grown a lot. So there's an Easter egg in each book.
An Easter egg in
Yes.
each book. Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay.
So this book has an Easter egg from this book. This one's a standalone. This one's a part of a duet. The second one's coming out in June. So they have characters with each other, obviously. And so there'll be an Easter egg in each one.
Nice. And so people can buy them on Amazon or on
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online.
Fantastic.
Target, online. I don't know about Walmart, but
And do people consume it on their tablets in Kindle
I have
or
most,
Nook form?
Yeah, mostly KU reads.
Okay. What are your thoughts about an audio book version?
I would love to, but that is very expensive. And for those, you really want a good narrator. Because for a lot of audiobook listeners, if they don't like the voice, it ruins it for them. So you have to find someone very reputable.
Now, given that this is a very PG production we're doing, do you fancy reading an extract from it?
I can read. There's like a couple. It's not crazy. It's steamy, but it's not like there's a plot, you know.
Okay.
I'll just read a couple sentences from the beginning. Okay. I knew when she was sad, she wore it like a heavy winter coat. I also knew when she was happy because she'd share that delight with me. I studied her every moment I got, and to this day, I'm not sure if she noticed just how much I adored her. Love wasn't in question, that was obvious. Is there something even deeper than unconditional love? If so, that is what would explain my feelings towards her. She was sublime, and at one point, she was mine.
Fantastic. Well, Rose, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you on May 10th.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Clap aboard. Nikki, very pleased to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Okay. Nikki, are you, is this the first time at Barnes & Noble for you?
This is my first time at Barnes & Noble and first time at Barnes & Noble in Santa Clarita Valley.
Fantastic. And you're not local? Are you a local of Santa Clarita?
I'm not a local of Santa Clarita, and you can probably tell from my accent. I'm actually not locally local. I do live in California, but I'm a British-born Australian. So I have a broad audience. My poetry, and it's Poetry Month this month, I don't know if you realize, but my poems are called Blackheart Words and Poems. It's a channeled anthology from the edge of darkness, illuminated with a sprinkling of light. The theme is love, but it's all types of love. Love of nature, platonic love, romantic love, unrequited love. So if you are here and you've ever experienced love or yearn for love, there's something in there for you. But it's also, when I mentioned before, they're channeled. You can open at any page and read a whole poem or a few of the words or even the number, and there might be a meaning for you. So if you want to choose, what I normally do, I normally get people to choose a number out of here, and then we read that poem.
Okay.
But I do particularly like, there's one poem.
This sounds like one of Rose's games.
Oh, yeah, she could write about this.
Exactly. Picking a number, okay.
The lion. You terrify me, I said to the lion. No need to be afraid. Come closer. Warm yourself against my coat. I am a bit cold, just for a moment then. Tiptoeing closer to this majestic beast. As I approached, I could hear his breath. I could see the saliva dripping from his jowls, like he was salivating. "Come closer," he breathed. "You are cold. I will protect you." Like a mouse, I moved a little closer. He did not move, just kept his gaze fixated on me. I stepped around his gigantic paws, reflecting that with one swipe I would be gone. He still did not move, except for his large tail flicking back and forth. "Come closer. You are shivering." I was, but not from cold. I was shaking down to my core. "I will keep you warm," the lion said, with a voice so deep and smooth. I was so close now that I could feel his breath. So close that I could feel the moisture within it. I was so close that I could stare into his eyes and see a glint of what looked like hunger. "Come closer, I won't bite." I was too close now that I could not run. I touched his fur. It was silky, soft, and so warm. I wanted so much to melt into it. "You can touch it. Come closer," he breathed again. I was now inches from him. Patiently, he again assured me that I would be okay. I broke from his gaze, and in one swipe, one bite, he devoured me. The saliva swung from him and dripped from his mouth, and I was
fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you on May 10th at the college. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
May
much.
10th is going to be amazing.
So people can find you online.
They can.
Nikki.
Nikki Rawnsley or Blackheart Alchemy with an I.
Okay.
.com is my website. And yes, I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, of course. And I will be at the Santa Clarita Valley Book Festival with my books, and I'll read some poems.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again.